How's it going, boys? You know when you're just chilling, just on the internet browsing, and then you see an article that just activates something, and it just immediately you know you have to read that article? Well, that kind of happened to me just now, and it's why I stopped what I was doing and I started recording this. Um, Here's the article. Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing, but these 10 RPGs do specific things better, right? Now, you might think, well, yeah, I'm sure there are, but you're not ready, right? I scrolled down just to see the top 10 one, just to see if this was really an article that I needed to talk about, and I think that it is. We don't really give a shit about the synopsis here. Dragon Age the Veilguard offers amazing character customization. Are we just gonna forget that Dragon's Dogma 2 came out before Veilguard completely humiliated it? Like, the only thing Veilguard character customization does well is hair, kind of. Look at this Kunari. What the fuck is this? Look at this. This looks terrible. They all look the fucking same. They all look the fucking same. Get the fuck out of here. Ugh. Great weapon and armor modification in Fallout 4. No, that made the game worse, dumbass. No. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I am not ready. Okay, this is going to be one of those, right? So we're going to actually engage directly with what they are talking about, right? So, Dragon Age the Veilguard offers amazing character customization. Unfortunately, none of that character customization actually matters for the game. Your origin has little to no impact unless you are specifically one of two origins. Being a Grey Warden doesn't matter whatsoever. There's a couple of throwaway lines regarding it, even though realistically it should be one of the more meaningful ones since it's the one that everybody knows and everybody was going to pick anyway. The one that I apparently has the most impact is if you are a Morn Watcher, which fair enough, right? Like you've got all sorts of undead stuff, and the one that matters the least is if you're a Lord of Fortune, because let's be honest, the Lords of Fortune shouldn't have been in the game. But with regards to the customization, I would argue that customization was maybe not as deep, but it was definitely better in Origins because you actually could easily make a very satisfyingly nice looking character for the art style. Now, I will grant the hairstyles weren't great. The hairstyles were kind of not that, yeah, the hair wasn't there. The hair is the only thing that Veilguard does well, but other things have come out in the same time frame that completely humiliate Veilguard with regards to the character customization. All right? Because as soon as you go, and by the way, the main reason for this is Veilguard does really nice hair, does okay faces, and then anything from the neck down is garbage. Right? They went and added, top surgery scars, but then bust size barely changeable, butt size barely changeable, hip width barely changeable, shoulder width barely changeable. The actual figure of your character is barely alterable. Compare that to something like Dragon's Dogma 2, where your character is much more mobile. There's a lot more impact to the actual size and characteristics of your character's physique, and all of a sudden, you kind of see just how bad the customization of Veilguard is. So this in the top 10 for this reason, bad pick. Let's talk about Fallout 4. New Vegas had better weapon and armor customization modification. Straight up. You want to know why? Because, and I've said this before in a previous video about why Fallout 4 sucks. Go check that out. In Fallout 4, the weapon customization was actually a way for Bethesda to not have to give a shit about creating unique and awesome weapons and armor. Compared to just how varied and unique the weapons and armor and like just general magic items are in Baldur's Gate 3, Fallout 4 gets blown out of the water. 90% of the time, you end up just fighting enemy goons with the same 2 or 3 guns, either pipe weapons or assault rifles or whatever the fuck else, and they're so interchangeable. It's impossible to know what your enemy is actually using or how strong it's going to be by looking at their weapon. Not to mention, the assault rifle is rare, even though it's 5.56, one of the most commonly used rifle calibers in the Wasteland prior to Fallout 4. And it ends up turning it into this really weird dynamic of just not knowing what each item can do because they wanted each item to be so heavily customizable. So again, Fallout 4's weapon and armor customization and modification is only a selling point if you don't know what makes a good itemization in an RPG. Knights of the Old Republic has one of the greatest character backstories. Holy shit, an actually good take! Yes, I've got nothing to add to this. KOTOR is renowned for this. And yes, it's a BioWare game as well, but it's an old BioWare game, right? Like, BioWare stopped being good somewhere around 2015. Around that area. 2012 to 2015 is roughly when we lost BioWare. So anything from BioWare before then, amazing. Anything from BioWare after that, you know, it got progressively worse. Dragon Age 2 had a good story, but the gameplay was not there. The gameplay of Dragon Age 2 was bad. They tried to make basically a version of Origins that was just slightly sped up, but they changed the way that the game balance works so deeply that it just didn't work anymore. I think that if they had just stuck to the CRPG roots of you and the enemies play by the same rules, but it's a little faster, it would have been fine, but instead they changed it. They made it more arcadey. They made it so you and the enemies play by different rules. They made every fight like just a horde mode where you're just fighting 3, 4, 5 waves of enemies, and it isn't fun, right? Like if you're fighting a group of bandits in the city, it doesn't make sense for there to be 3 or 4 waves of them. Like you fight the ones you're doing, and then like more of them come out from the roofs, or more of them come out from the, like it doesn't make sense, right? It's stupid. But let's continue. Morrowind shows just how complex the Elder Scrolls setting is. Yes, a lot of people praise Morrowind for just how deep it is. I still haven't played Morrowind. I still need to eventually. You know, maybe I'll do it on stream. We'll see. But it is definitely a game that I am looking forward to playing. I think I have it on GOG, but I never got around to playing it. Skyrim offers a staggering amount of character flexibility. Yes, Skyrim is known for being a sandbox. We've talked about this at length. Skyrim is, in terms of open world RPGs, exactly what you want to make. It is one of the best of its kind because it has literally just about enough of everything that you never really get bored so long as you enjoy the sandbox aspect of it. I kind of enjoy more of a story, but every once in a while I reinstall a game like Skyrim or New Vegas, in my case, is my preference, and just play around a little bit with it. It's really good. Mass Effect 3's story, incredible epic scope, yes. But here's the thing. You can't just say Mass Effect 3, you have to say Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. There's no Mass Effect game after that. Because the story of Mass Effect 3, its scope, is only that good because of the previous 2 games, right? Because as you play through Mass Effect 3, every single side quest in Mass Effect 3 is a callback to something you did in Mass Effect 1, or has a callback, right? Because it is a continuous story. So that's why the Mass Effect Legendary Edition was so successful, because it allows you to play these 3 games back to back to back and enjoy exactly why the scope was so good, right? And again, BioWare 2012. It started to show the signs of it with the ending. The ending was really bad. There was a lot of missed opportunities. For example, you know, Shepard becoming more like Reaperified, almost like a husk if you make the certain decisions, but you get stronger, but you become more of a husk, you know. If it had some more of the scope in terms of like decision and flexibility that Baldur's Gate 3 had, it would have been better. I will be honest. But instead, we got what we did, and I really like what we got. Fable's world reacts to evil deeds. Eh, eh, right? Like, after playing Fable, the only real difference between being good and evil is your physical appearance and how the people kind of go, don't hurt me, or, oh my god, he's so awesome, right? So, I understand what it was trying to do, and for its time, it was really good, but nowadays it kind of falls short of full reactivity. It's still more than many, so it's still very good, and it's still a very good game. I wouldn't play it for a challenge, because it really does lack that in terms of a challenge. But and it does give you options. Like I will say, Fable does something that a lot of games don't do. Um, Fable gives you equal options for the good and the bad playthrough, and it rewards them both equally, which I think is a very good thing. A lot of games don't do that. A lot of games go, haha, the evil guy gets to turn into this big monster and is super cool and has all these powers, and the good guy can cast a healing spell, I guess. Right? It's not super interesting. It's not great. Mass Effect 2 has some of the best companions. Yeah, it does. But I think that this again applies to Mass Effect in general. So we've already talked about how awesome Mass Effect is. The companions are awesome, and there's nothing to be done. There's nothing to be said about it. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt's sheer number of story choices. Yes, Witcher 3 is easily one of the most well written and comprehensively written RPGs out there. You will struggle to find something with as many well written short stories as Witcher, because specifically Witcher 3. Because in Witcher 3, almost every single side quest that you play feels like a main story mission for some other campaign, right? Like Geralt has his own story, which like occupies the majority of the game, and then eventually go on to do Blood and Wine and Heart of Stone. But every single side mission that you do throughout the game is unique. It stands out on its own. You talk to 100 different people and ask 100 different people what their favorite side quest in Witcher 3 is, and you'll get 100 different answers, right? Amazing, awesome. The story choices that you get are great. And Dragon Age Origins has one of the best villains in the Put Logain. Yeah, kind of, but I feel like the thing that makes Origins so good isn't just the villain, it's the adventure and how it's how do I explain this in words to somebody who doesn't already think it this way? Basically, Dragon Age Origins is the archetypal adventure of a hero that should have failed on day one and rising up to save the day. Everything is against you. You've got the literal most powerful man in the country trying to kill you, and you still have to unify everybody and save the day. And I think that there's a few parts of Origins that can be improved upon, but overall, I think it even nowadays stands as a 10 out of 10 game if it works perfectly. Unfortunately, there's a lot of problems with Origins, especially the engine, that bring it down to like an 8 out of 10 experience. Um, the constant crashes are something that makes it damn near unplayable for somebody who doesn't have the patience for that. But in terms of like the actual gameplay, I think it's a very solid CRPG. I think if someone like Larian was to pick up Dragon Age again and remake it, they could make an amazing experience that would honestly not dwarf Baldur's Gate 3, but be very comparable to it. I think if we got a. Honestly, now that I think about it, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is very comparable to Origins in that sense. I think that they are the same game, except, almost 20 years apart. Well, more like 15, but still, you know what I mean. Regardless, it's a very, very interesting game. And yeah, I do think that Logain is a better enemy, final enemy than the Chosen of the Dead 3 in Baldur's Gate 3 because actually he's comparable to Ketheric, I think, in terms of like the deeply flawed man who kind of gave himself to evil because he felt like he had to. Compared to like Gortash's Machiavellian schemes and Orin just, murder makes me come type shit. Um, he's a very compelling enemy, and I would compare him to Ketheric, I think. Um, I also think that the villains of Baldur's Gate 3 could use some work. Like, I think that the Absolute in Baldur's Gate 3 was a detriment to the story overall. But we can blame Wizards of the Coast for that because that was literally the condition for them letting Larian work on the game. Basically, the Elder Brain was Wizards of the Coast, and the Dead 3 Chosen were Larian, which is why the Chosen of the Dead 3 are much more interesting and much more developed villains than the Elder Brain. I do think that Gortash is not a well-written chosen of Bane because he just doesn't match any of the tenets of Bane. Overwhelming force, being a figure of power rather than manipulation. Just. But again, that is opinion. That is my view of things. I still think it's very nice. I do think that the game would have been a lot better if in Act 2 you fight Ketheric, in Act 3 you fight Gortash, and in the finale you face off against Orin, and the final battle is against Orin, not as the Slayer, but as the Ravager, this giant version of the Slayer trying to fucking destroy everything. Um, and I think that if they have made you the Dark Urge by default, like that's your Tav, right? I think that would have been a much more interesting story. Just because of the fact that if you're just playing as Tav and not a Dark Urge or an Origin, like you kind of miss out on a lot of stuff that very clearly is in the game. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this little rant about this article of RPGs that are better than Baldur's Gate 3 in one way or another. I hope you enjoyed me laughing at Veilguard and Fallout 4. But overall, the article was okay, right? Like some of the things that they said in the article were a little off. Putting Mass Effect on there twice was very fucking lazy. Especially because they should have put Rogue Trader there in number 2 for setting. Much more so than much more deserving than Mass Effect getting 2 spots, because they should have put Mass Effect in 1 spot and included the story's epicness and the characters and all that stuff. But Rogue Trader definitely deserves a spot in there for just how much of the setting of 40K it exposes to you. It kind of deserved to be there for the same reason that Morrowind does. But with all that being said, I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope to see you again next time. Like, subscribe. Cheers. Have a good one.